Do you often get asked what your sign is? Maybe you often get grimaces when you say that you're a Virgo, or people celebrate your Libra-ness. But why are these reactions so prevalent? How does your birth date determine your personality, let alone separate the entire world into 12 main personality types? This presentation will impact how this astrology phenomenon gains so much traction and why it is so believable. Superstition is to religion what astrology is to astronomy, the mad daughter of a wise mother. These daughters have too long dominated the earth. Voltaire. Astrology's basic premise is that heavenly bodies, the sun, moon, planets, and constellations, have influence over or are correlated with earthly events. Astrology uses a set of rules about the relative positions and movements of heavenly bodies to generate predictions and explanations for events on Earth and human personality traits. The scholarly study of astrology dates back to the 2nd millennium BC, with Babylonian astrology being the first organized system, and it went up until the 17th century, where it got discredited as a pseudoscience. Astrology is different from astronomy. This can be seen in the Latin translations of the two words. Astrology means studying the heavens, and astronomy means writing the heavens. At first glance, one may think these two disciplines have a strong correlation with one another, but the astronomy academic community would definitely beg to differ. Astronomy uses the scientific process to study the entire universe, including the celestial objects both visible and invisible to our naked human eyes. Astrology also suggests their practices follow physical influences, the constellations, the sun, moon, and 8 other planets other than Earth. The positions of these influences when you are born supposedly have a direct correlation to a person's personality. As can be seen here in this chart, there are 12 signs that correspond to the 12 months-ish of the year. Each sign is normally about 30 days long, going in between calendar months. Aries, the first zodiac sign of the year, begins around the end of March up until mid-April. Aries are known to be natural-born leaders. Next are Tauruses, which are known to strive for stability. Up next are Geminis, and they are known to be easily adaptable to situations. Then are Cancers, who are known to have a wide array of emotions. Then it's Leos, who are known to crave being the center of attention. Then are Virgos, who are known to be extremely detail-oriented. Up next are Libras, and they are known to be social butterflies. After are Scorpios, who are known to be observant of their surroundings. Next are Sagittariuses, and they are known to be truth seekers. After them are Capricorns, who are known to be practical, ambitious, and determined. Then it's Aquariuses, who are known to be visionaries and socially conscious. Then Pisces, the last sign of the zodiac, which begins mid-February and ends when Aries sign begins over again. Pisces are known to be emotionally in tune with themselves. Looking at this, you may think that these 12 zodiacs fit quite neatly into a calendar year. However, this chart isn't as set in stone as one would originally think. It has been found out that 13 constellations actually exist on the zodiacal band. Many of the 12 signs intersect with each other, so they actually don't have a clear uniform time frame for each sign. This reveals clearly the fundamental difference between astronomy and astrology. These two disciplines deal with the sky, but not the same sky. The astronomical sky is physical, while the astrological one is symbolic. I was drawn to this topic because over the past year, I've been constantly getting asked about my star sign from my fellow peers. I wondered why there's been a recent astrology craze amongst young people. This rise can be traced back to the recent wellness boom of the late 2010s. This boom predicated on the idea of #self-care, which mainly consisted of face masks, social media detoxes, and mental health days. This mentality focused on upkeeping one's physical, mental, and spiritual health, which mixed neatly in New Age spirituality. This New Age spirituality movement is the idea of breaking away from traditional forms of religion and into the metaphysical. However, it has some similar principles to religion. So, imagine rocks, crystals that promote certain characteristics, holistic medicine like essential oils, and of course, looking at you and your friends' horoscopes. So when you see a TikTok describing the outfits that best go with the 12 zodiac signs, know that it stems back to the wellness movement and decline of traditional religion within Gen Z. Confirmation bias occurs from the direct influence of desire onto one's beliefs. When people would like a certain idea to be true, they end up believing it to be true. They are motivated by wishful thinking. This error leads the individual to stop gathering information when the evidence they've gathered so far confirms the view or prejudices one they would like to be true. There are 3 main types of confirmation bias. Bias search for information. This type of confirmation bias explains people's search for evidence in a one-sided way to support their hypothesis or theories. Experiments have shown that people provide tests/questions that are designed to yield a yes answer if their favored hypotheses are true, and ignore alternative hypotheses that are likely to give the same result. Next is biased interpretation of information. This type explains that people accept confirming evidence more easily and critically evaluate the disconfirming evidence. So, when provided with the same evidence, people's interpretations could still be biased. And then the last type of confirmation bias is biased memory recall of information. To confirm their current beliefs, people may remember/recall information selectively. Some theories state that information confirming prior beliefs is much more easily stored in the memory, while contradictory evidence is not. In terms of astrology, all 3 types of confirmation bias have a factor in it. Despite it being a widely regarded pseudoscience, astrology is still believed to be an accurate description of people's personalities. This is because of the way these horoscopes are worded. Their vagueness means it's extremely easy to believe whatever these horoscopes say due to confirmation bias. Astrology uses 3 main principles to make it extra convincing to people: the Barnum effect, hyper-complex inputs, and positive personalization. This mix is what has made astrology such a widespread phenomenon. The Barnum effect. Named after the 19th century showman P.T. Barnum, whose circus acts provided a little something for everyone, which refers to the idea that people will believe a statement about their personality that is vague or trivial if they think that it derives from some systematic procedure tailored especially for them. So, any of the traits that seemingly belong to a particular sun sign can easily be shifted around to describe another sun sign. Complexity. People tend to assume that the more complex the information used as an input into astrological readings, the more accurate the predictions are. So, you have your original sun sign, which is based on when you were born. But if you get into astrology, there are other things like moon signs, rising signs, and retrogrades, which are based on the exact time, placement of the planets, and precise location of when you were born. Because it sounds complicated, people believe it must be scientific. Personalization. Horoscopes are extremely vague, but they are also extremely positive. We have to look really intensely to find a negative trait about any sign from these horoscopes. Even sections that explain a weakness of your sun sign will add the caveat that it's because one's positive traits may cause slight problems. Now, going back to the 3 main types of confirmation bias. There are many ways for astrology to fit into each type. For bias search of information, it is easy to look up a particular trait of a certain sign without looking for any opposing argument. And because there are so many of these horoscopes out there, it's extremely easy to find one that fits best with what your personality actually is. For biased interpretation of information, one person may read how Geminis are two-faced backstabbers, while another person will say they are really adaptable to any situation. They may read the same overly vague description of a Gemini horoscope, but come to different conclusions based on their preconceived notions for or against Geminis as a whole. And lastly, for the biased recall of information, it can be exemplified by someone remembering only the good or bad traits of a certain sign. People typically only remember points that fit into their preset ideas and immediately forget opposing views. So why do humans exhibit confirmation bias? There are 3 main reasons for why this bias occurs within our brains. First is information processing. Confirmation bias could serve as an efficient way to process information. The brain's capacity to absorb information is limited, and there are too many things in our life to consciously keep track of. So the brain finds shortcuts to function properly in the world, so they don't have to relearn what a chair is over and over and over again. This means that once a shortcut has been formed, it is much harder to rewrite it. Next is to protect one's self-esteem. People are susceptible to confirmation bias to protect their self-esteem, to know that their beliefs are accurate. To make themselves feel confident, they tend to look for information that supports their existing beliefs. And the last reason is to minimize cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is a mental conflict that occurs when a person holds two contradictory beliefs and causes psychological stress/unease in a person. To minimize this dissonance, people adapt to confirmation bias by avoiding information that is contradictory to their views and seeking information confirming their beliefs. Despite having a place in our brains for a reason, confirmation bias can lead to many problems in a person's life. While it's crazy for people to disregard friendships and relationships based on a supposed incompatibility of one's sun signs, confirmation bias goes beyond simple astrology personality charts. It can have real negative effects on one's life and important decisions. One example includes politics, where people generally prefer to spend more time looking at information that supports their political stance and less time looking at information that contradicts it. Next is investing money, where investors give more weight to information that confirms their pre-existing beliefs regarding the value of certain stocks. And lastly, scientific research, where scientists often display the confirmation bias when they selectively analyze and interpret data in a way that confirms their preferred hypotheses. So, how do we minimize the harmful effects of confirmation bias? Read entire articles. Rather than forming conclusions based on the headlines and pictures, search for credible evidence presented in the article. Then, analyze if statements being asserted are backed up by trustworthy evidence, so tracking the source of evidence could prove its credibility. And lastly, encourage yourself and others to gather information in a much more conscious way. Thank you for listening.